तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नम ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणी हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome to the Bhaktyaloka series, which are essays on articles of the six faults and the six good qualities by which one can attain pure devotion. The six faults are Atyahara Prayasascha Prajalpo Niyamagraha Janasangascha Laulyam Cha Shadbhir Bhaktir Vinashyati. So in the last few classes, we saw Atyahar. What is the deeper meaning of Atyahar? Not to give too much ahar to the senses. We need this ahar because without that, the living entity cannot live. But when it is accepted in the spirit of enjoyment, then it is a fault. But when it is accepted as the mercy of the Lord, then we can make advancement. So that was the deeper meaning of what Atyahar, and that's why uh, Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes various references from the Gita and especially the fifth and the sixth chapter, and then quotes that although these are applicable to Gyanis, but the purport is equally applicable to the Bhakti Yogis, considering the verse Sarvadharman Parityaja. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes on to mention the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu Yukta Vairagya principle. So only when these sense objects are accepted as a mercy of the Lord, then there is no fault of Atyahar. And then he gives two applications for the renunciates and the householders. Then we saw prayas. There is bhoga prayas, karma prayas, you know, jnana prayas. Then there is ashtanga yoga prayas, and then there is vairagya prayas. All these are unfavorable to pure devotional service. Only bhakti prayas, and there has to be little endeavor for bhakti prayas in the conditioned state, and one has to endeavor to give up, pratishtha asha, pride. So that is how he discusses about prayas. So today we will take up Prajalpa. Prajalpa means talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. That's how Prabhupada translates. Now, the Prajalpa is, talking with one another is called Jalpan or Prajalpa. That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur defines. Prajalpa. Now, this Prajalpa has the literal meaning of the word Jalpan, that means talking with another, but it can have positive connotation or negative connotation. And sometimes words have also neutral connotation based on the context. So the writers, apart from the literal meaning of the word, there are different shades of meanings which they use in their writings to express subtle nuances or subtle deeper meanings of the words. So, just to give an example, blue's blue color. That's the literal meaning of the word blue. But then when you say that when he heard the bad news, his face turned blue. So it doesn't mean that literally his face color turned blue. That means, he was affected by the negative news. So then the term blue, you cannot use it in the literal sense of the meaning blue color, but you'll have to use it from the different connotation. So here it is the negative connotation. So connotations are different shades of meanings a word can have apart from the literal sense of the word. So Prajalpa, this is the definition. But now Bhaktivinoda Thakur will use it in a positive way and also a negative way. So let us see that. Now I'm going to go through this article line by line, and if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. Talking with one another is called Jalpan or Prajalpa. So this is the literal meaning of the word Prajalpa. Nowadays in this world, godlessness is so prominent that conversing with others means godless talk. Please mark this statement of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur written this article many, many years back, and he's aware uh, if that was his perception, maybe from now 100 years back, more than 100 years back, what is today, Talking, conversing with others means it is only godless talk. Therefore, it is not profitable for a practicing devotee to engage in jalpan, because jalpan here now has been used, talk means it is godless talk. Therefore, however, there can, however, be many kinds of jalpan in the cultivation of devotional service. So now he starts defining the word jalpan in a positive connotation. They are all auspicious for the devotees. Srila Rupa Goswami has written in his Karpanya Panjika Stotra, Tathapyasmin kadachit Vamadisho Nama Jalpani Avadya Vrindanistari Namabhaso Prasidatam. Devotees recite the purport of this verse in the following words. Tatapi e dine jane yadi nam ucharane namabhasa karila jivane sarvadosha nivarana duhun nam sanjalpa prasade prasida duijane. So here this is the verse of Rupa Goswami in the Karpanya Panjika Stotra. Stotra is again glorification, and Karpanya means out of humility. So what Rupa Goswami is saying in the verse is, elaborated here. While chanting the holy name of the Lord, yadi nam ucharani. This is also tatapi asmin kadachin, nam jalpani, same it is. If a wretched person, tatapi e dina jane, here wretched means, that is humble, in his lifetime achieves namabhas or a glimpse of the offenseless chanting. Namabhasa karila jivan. Namabhaso prasidatam. Then all his faults are destroyed. Sarvadosha nivarana. And the lordships become pleased with him. Dohan Nam Sanjalpana Prasade Prasida Duijane. So the Lord becomes pleased only when we come to the stage of Namapas chanting. So that is also called as Jalpan. Kirtan, offering prayers, and reciting the scriptures are all Jalpan. But when these are performed with a favorable mood and devoid of material desire, then they are all cultivation of Krishna consciousness. So here I have put in the chart Jalpan has a positive connotation, that is Krishna Katha, a negative connotation, that is godless talk, and neutral aspect is, I'll not talk, I'll just maintain mauna silence. Therefore, the conclusion is this: all Jalpan that are unfavorable to Krishna service are adverse to devotional service. So, this is how he draws the conclusion. The practitioners should carefully give up Prajalpa. So, the practitioner should give up Prajalpa in the form of negative talks or the negative connotation of Prajalpa. But they should engage in the positive connotation of Prajalpa, that is in Krishna Katha. But again, criteria is it should be done in a favorable mood. Anukulisa Sankalpa. No, sorry. Anyabhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadyanavritam Anukulena Krishnanu, in a favorable mood. And it should be done devoid of desire, material desire. There is no fault in the activities of the Mahajans. The Mahajans have respectfully engaged in Prajalpa, favorable to devotional service, and this is our only duty. So now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is speaking about the activities of Mahajan. Sometimes puffed up devotees advise that all types of Prajalpa should be given up. So this is like extreme, they go to that neutral side, you know. All types of Prajalpa should be going on. One should maintain silence and solitude. But we are the followers of Srila Rupa Goswami. Being followers of Rupa Goswami, we will always stick to the path shown by the sadhus who are following his instructions. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, as quoted from the Skanda Puran, it is said, Samriga Shreyasam Hetu Panta Santapavarjita Anavapta Shramamam Purve Yena Santa Pratishtare. One should strictly follow the easy path that the previous Mahajans have accepted. That path bestows great auspiciousness, Shreyamsa, Hetu, and devoid of all misery. Panta Santapa Varjita. Our Mahajan's path is that which is shown by Srila Vyasdev, Sukadeva Goswami, Prahlad Maharaj, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his associates. We are not to leave aside the path to follow the instruction of new puffed up devotees. All the Mahajans have respected that Prajalpa which nourishes devotion to Hari. We will discuss this in the appropriate place. So Prajalpa in the form of Krishna Katha is what the Mahajans have engaged. So we will follow the path of Mahajans, and that is for our ultimate benefit, Shreyamsa, and it is Santapa Varjita. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about this godless Prajalpa. Godless Prajalpa are impediments to devotional service. They are of many types. Users talk, argument, gossip, debates, fault finding with others, speaking falsehood, blaspheming devotees, worldly talks are all Prajalpa. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, what are the negative connotations of this Prajalpa which a devotee should not engage? He lists these 8. And in this article, he's going to go through all this 8, and we'll see them one by one. Let's see first, useless talk. I hope up till now devotees are able to follow the discussion. And do you have any questions up till now, what I have discussed? Now, first, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about the useless talk. Mark this statement, useless talk is extremely detrimental. Because remember what Rupa Goswami is saying in Prajalpa, Shadbir Bhaktir Vinashati. And among this all six, it is Prajalpa which is, very, very detrimental in our spiritual progress, especially talks about fault finding or criticizing. Uh, all these talks, these are very, very detrimental. Practicing sure devotee should discuss topics of Hari in the association of other devotees and remember Hari's name, form, qualities, pastimes in a secluded place without uselessly wasting time. In the Bhagavad Gita 10.89, it is said, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam bodha bhava samanvita. I am the source of everything. Due to me, everything operates. Convinced by this knowledge, the intelligent person endowed with love, bhava samanvita worships me. Macchitta matgata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. With minds greedy for me, Macchitta, being completely dependent on me, Madgata Prana, mutually hearing about me, Bodhayanta Parasparam, and singing about me, Katayantascha Mam, they continuously experience satisfaction and enjoyment. Nityam Tushyanti cha Ramanti cha. Also in the Gita 9:14 it says, Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha drida vrata namasyantascha mam bhaktya nityayukta upasate. They worship me at all times. Satatam mam upasate with devotion bhaktya in the form of singing about me, kirtayanto, having strict vows, drida vrata, desiring to be my associates, nityayukta, wondering about to gain association, yatanta, and offering unto me respects as well as other devotional acts. Namasyante chamam bhaktya. In this way, the practicing devotee should cultivate unalloyed devotion. If they spend their days and nights uselessly talking with materialists, then the Lord's instruction, always chanting my glories, will not be followed. Satatam kirtayanto mam. In newspapers, there is so much useless talk. Now, this is a very important point Bhaktivinoda Thakur is bringing before, you know, generally many years back before internet and e-news started, you had to wait in the morning when the physical newspaper is to be delivered. And then in the morning, you sit with the newspaper and absorb all the negative news of this world. So how can you stay positive? And I remember one of the sannyasis mentioned to me that initially in his practice of Krishna consciousness, he was writing some spiritual articles in the Times of India magazine or some newspaper. I don't remember which one. And he was writing, and they were publishing it. And at some point, one day morning, he was waiting for the newspaper to arrive. So the moment he sensed in his consciousness, my goodness, I'm just waiting. When will 7 o'clock happen and the newspaper will come so that I can read? So he immediately detected and he stopped subscribing the newspaper. So now in today's world, no newspaper need not be subscribed because it's there on our mobile. Anytime you can access it. So in newspaper, there is so much of useless talk and it will destroy our devotion. So that's why how careful we have to be. For a practicing devotee to read newspaper is a great loss. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying. But if there are topics about pure devotees described in the newspaper, then that can be read. So you know how Prabhupada applied this principle that whenever there was some critical article and it used to come in the newspaper, of course there used to be uh, Lord Krishna's name in that. Prabhupada used to say how many times Lord Krishna's name is there. Finished to say good. So although it was a very critic article. So that's how also was Bhakti Siddhanta Sarita Thakur's way of judging. So only if there is news about some Krishna conscious topic, then it can be read. Otherwise, reading newspaper is a great loss. Now, you remember Prabhupada's time, there was no much communication as it is today developed in the world. And hardly, Prabhupada, it is said, Giriraj Maharaj mentions that hardly 4 or 5 times Prabhupada used the telephone. All the communication Prabhupada used to do with all the disciples, all the temples, temple presidents was through letters. And that time fax machine was, in use. And one time, after a festival program in one of the temples, this devotee sent a fax message to other temples. And when Prabhupada, heard about it, Prabhupada said, "This is Prajalpa." So now you can imagine with emails and now with WhatsApp, what all activities are happening in other places. If you are located in your center, you go to your center and relish directly, experience Krishna consciousness. But so much of Prajalpa happens even on these communication networks like WhatsApp and all. So that's why devotees should restrict even use of WhatsApp just for essential communication. I mean, essential means essential. So otherwise, it can lead to too much of useless talk. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying is a great loss. Now, further, after finishing the meal, mundane people normally smoke and engage in useless talk with other godless people. It is certainly difficult for them to become followers of Srila Rupa Goswami. Reading novels is the same. So, what to speak about so-called self-help books and so other books. But if one gets a novel with a story like that of Puranjan in the Srimad Bhagavatam, then reading that is not an impediment, rather it is beneficial. So the tendency to read novels, if it is there and you're relishing that, then it is the same. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself has written novels in the form of Prem Pradipa and Jaiva Dharma. Jaiva Dharma and Prem Pradeep are the best novels in spiritual canon books of the Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So this tendency to read novels can be diverted to reading Jaiva Dharma or Prema Pradeep or the BTG magazines also. Okay, so that is regarding godless talk. Now the second he comes to argument. Again, if you have any questions, you're free to raise your hands. Yes, Devhuti Kapil Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Am I audible?
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
unmuted you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah. So, Prabhuji, like regarding reading newspapers, right? Like, see,
Yes.
Prabhuji, like if especially if you are an
I'm not able
outreach.
to hear you.
Oh, 1 second. I think.
The reason.
Can you hear me now, Prabhuji? Am I audible now?
The reason here, audio,
Uh,
microphone.
am I audible now?
Haribol.
Yes, Prabhuji. Can you hear
Now,
me?
no. Why am I not able to hear? Okay. Yeah, now let us see.
Hare Krishna. Can you
Yeah,
hear me now?
yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
I
Yeah.
think
So Prabhuji, my question was on, the reading newspapers or so especially if you are an outreach preacher, you meet
various people from various locations, right? Like, especially when you want to actually first connect with them with your talks, you need to have some common intersection points. So, at least for that purpose, is it not recommended to stay in touch with the current world and understand what's happening? And how do we prevent ourselves from being contaminated? Because not staying in touch with the current material reality is not an option. Because that is something which I find it very hard to agree. Because most of the preachers, they disconnect themselves from the world, and sometimes when they talk, not everybody can do an outreach talk and influence people.
Yeah, see, I understand this point very well, and that's why I gave that example of that sannyasi who, who stopped uh, buying the newspaper because although he was, trying to write articles, he was himself a writer and writing articles for the newspaper to reach to the outreach. So, Jayadvaita Maharaj once mentioned in with respect to the same question. Now, uh, when it comes to being in touch with, what is happening in the world today, he said, that, I get information from the right sources. I need not go through the newspaper. When I meet devotees, like today, there is something about the artificial intelligence being spoken. So when you go and give a lecture in temple, there are many in the software field who are uh, aware of this. And while discussing with them, you come to know what is happening in the current trend modern world. So that's the way we can, be careful in dealing because material energy is material energy. It is Maya, and you can get trapped. So that is why you have to be very, very careful. So this is what Jayadvaita Maharaj said. To know the current affairs and what is happening, while discussing with the devotees in whichever center he is, he finds out. So that's how you have to deal with it. Otherwise, uh, you can get caught and entangled a lot. And I have seen it, I have observed it that in the name of devotional service, you get so much trapped that you get carried away. And when you get carried away, you cannot really understand why you river Ganavali. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 2.67 is saying, even if one of the senses is fixed on the same subjects and it can carry away just like a boat is carried away by the wind. So that is why one has to be very, very careful and have some precautions. And whatever is necessary, he has to do it. I remember also, I'll tell you another thing that in one of the sannyasis had to give a talk to the outside audience, not ISKCON audience, outside audience on a book which was written by another author in the outside world about about the Mahabharata it was. And based on that book, he had to, give a talk and somehow connect them to Krishna consciousness. Now, what is mentioned in that book, he has to read it before he can, speak about it because the talk was about that book. So, what the sannyasi did is like the one who had arranged the program because he knew about it. So, he had read that book. So, he got all the inputs about it. And then, taking that inputs, then he developed a Krishna conscious perspective about uh, what is given in the Shastra. And that's how he gave the talk. And I myself heard the talk. And I was surprised the way he carefully dealt with it. So this is how one devotee has to, deal, and that's the best way because that's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is carefully warning us about these things. Is it okay, Prabhuji?
Not very convincing, but that's okay, friend. Because like the most fundamental problem with our Indian education system is the critical thinking ability, right? When you present an information in front of people, they don't know how to validate the information. That is a very, very fundamental problem, deeply rooted in our education system. But if you see in the Western countries in class six, the way they teach, they'll present, a teacher will give students a paper. The teacher doesn't care whether it's right or wrong. You hold your stance and you give the arguments why you are holding your stance. They evaluate based on that. So now the same stock standard answer which I get from most of the preachers is, if something is problematic, stay away. But not many people teach how to exist in that ecosystem and still maintain your consciousness.
That is why I told you, you see the whole during Prabhupada's time, how Prabhupada dealt, you know, and
Mm,
that is the example we can follow. So, uh,
mm.
when you come to this article further again, Dr. Thakur is
Mm.
going to make it more clear. Let's go through it once again.
Okay, okay. All right, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Now, argument is a prajalpa that is adverse to devotional service. Yeah, arguments about, this is the event happened and no, it should have been done like this, it should have not been like done like this, about any events in this world. I'm not speaking about within the devotional circle. All the arguments of the followers of Nyaya and Vaisheshika are simply godless quarrels. They do not yield any result other than wasting the mind strength and increasing one's restlessness. So this is also what happens, when you go into arguments, they waste mind strength and increase one's restlessness. Though sometimes these arguments can happen within devotional service. Of course, now nobody discusses arguments on Nyaya and Vaisheshika. There are no such darshanik scholars now. But with respect to, some activities within ISKCON, you can start arguing about it and it can go on and on and on. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says it is wasting mind strength and increasing one's restlessness. Please mark this. This is how it can, that argument keeps on going on and actually your mind strength gets reduced. And then there is your mind becomes more restless because of this arguments. So one has to be very, very careful and not get too much entangled in these arguments. In the Vedas, Kathopanishads, it is said, Naisa tarkena matir apa neya. The intelligence cannot be attained by argument. The living entity's proper discretion is eternally established in his natural intelligence. That discretion naturally flows towards the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. But by arguing about directions, place, mistakes, and illusions, the heart becomes tough. Then natural discretion no longer remains. So arguments about these directions, places, mistakes, illusions, the heart becomes tough. By accepting the Vedic Dashamula instructions and arguing accordingly, one's mind does not become wicked. So arguing based on Dashamula, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to introduce Dashamula in the next article. Atyahara prayasasya prajalpo niyamagra janasangasya jolyam utsaha nishchay. In nishchay, he is going to introduce Dashamula. That time we will see. So the arguments should be based on Dashamula. And when you argue, then one's mind does not become wicked. What is good, what is bad, when such deliberations are based on the Vedas, that is no longer Prajalpa. So usually we get caught in what is good, what is bad. And these deliberations, if they are not based on Dashamula or the Vedas, then it is Prajalpa. Otherwise, if it is based on the Vedas, it is no longer Prajalpa. That is why in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given the instruction, Ateva Bhagavata Kare Vichar. Study Srimad Bhagavatam very scrutinizingly. Discussions to establish the knowledge of one's relationship with the Lord is not Prajalpa. Those who conquer the assembly by useless arguments do not reach any conclusion. Therefore, it is certainly one's duty to give up such logicians' association. Sometimes, devotees I have observed that, they go on arguing on certain issues like anything. And as Bhaktivinoda Thakur and our observation is the heart becomes tough. The heart really becomes tough. This is confirmed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita by Sri Vasudev Sarvabhauma, who said, Tarkika Shrigal Sanghe Bhav Bhav Kari Seimuke Abe Sada Kahi Krishna Hari. So this is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya when he, uh, the staunch Mayavadi, he became converted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So after this conversion, he's saying, in the association of jackals known as logicians, I simply continue to bark a resounding bhav bhav. Now from the same mouth, I am chanting the holy names of Krishna and Hari. So this, arguments of the logicians is compared to, resounding bhav bhav, like the dog barking. So that is what, he's saying. Those who are accustomed to discuss spiritual matters should remember the words of Varanasi Sannyasi as found in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Paramartha vichara gela kari matravad kahan muke mukti pave kahan Krishna prasad. The atheists headed by the Mayavadi philosophers do not care for liberation or Krishna's mercy. They simply continue to put forward false arguments and counter theories to atheistic philosophy, not considering engaging in spiritual matters. Useless argument arise from envy or pride, aversion or attachment to sense gratification, or foolishness or self-pride. Quarrelsome person also becomes intoxicated by useless arguments. While discussing topics of the Lord and his devotees, the devotee should always be careful to avoid useless arguments. Always be. Now, I'm here in Kerala, in South India, for taking some Ayurvedic treatment. And interestingly, there are few devotees of the congregation who are also taking treatment here. But every day afternoon, 3 to 6, practically, they sit and chat. It's not some harikatha about this topic, what was right, what was wrong. And, it's such a disturbing thing that I don't even go near it. So sometimes devotees have to be very, very careful about certain issues, certain topics, certain current issues. It's all detrimental. We don't know the effects of it. Shadbir Bhaktir Vinashati. Please remember what Rupa Goswami is saying. He's not saying Nashati. He's saying Vinashati. It will completely destroy your devotion. Either 6 of them or any one of them also. Talking without reason about other people is extremely adverse to devotional service. So now he is speaking about gossip. You start gossiping. Usually devotees don't talk to each other, but talk about each other. you know. Yes, Nandini Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, what about arguments which are not materialistic but something on managerial level.
See, when there is about something to be executed, and that is just for the service of Krishna, how it is to be executed, that kind of argument is Ishtagoshti. It is, how to execute that for serving the Vaishnavas or serving the Lord. That is not useless argument. But sticking to your own this and being adamant and unnecessarily arguing about it, then that can go a little extreme. But how to serve the Lord, how to serve the devotees, that kind of argument is, conducive. It's not detrimental. I hope it is clear.
Yes, Ruchi, thank you so much.
Yeah. Many people talk about others to establish their own reputation. Being envious, some people are accustomed to discuss others' character. So why we gossip about others? Because uh, to establish their own reputation and being envious. The minds of those who are busy in such topics can never be fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna. Very heavy statement. Talking about others should be rejected in all respects. So, talking about others is, it should be rejected in all respects. But in the practice of devotional service, there are many favorable topics that are faultless, even though they are about others. Now, this is very important, and we'll go into this detail. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has first established how talking about others is adverse to devotional service and why it is done, to establish how you are better, or by doing that you will never be fixed in the lotus of feet of Krishna, and that's why you should avoid. But he now says that in the practice of devotional service, there are favorable topics that are faultless, even they are about others. So the first principle is that one should not talk about others. But in devotional service, you can talk about others. There are favorable topics, but they are also faultless and they are about others. That you can do. Now let's see. In order to completely renounce talking about others, one needs to live in the forest. The two different types of practicing devotees are the householders and the renunciates. Again, he comes to the same. Because the renunciates have no business whatsoever with the sense enjoyment, they can give up talking about others in all respects. But because a householder is engaged in earning, saving, protecting, and maintaining the family, he cannot completely give up talking about others. Prajalpa Thakur is very practical and pragmatic. A renunciate has to completely give up his business about talking about others. But for householder, it is not, he cannot. It is best for him to live in a Krishna conscious family when all one's material activities are related to Krishna. Then even his unavoidable talk about others becomes sinless and a part of devotional practice in relation to Krishna. So somehow, all his activities, uh, material activities should be related to Krishna, and then that in unavoidable talk with others also will become sinless and part of devotional service. So I remember one devotee uh, who was a software engineer and a project leader in one of the big companies. He was telling me that in the afternoon, he gets his prasadam tiffin box, and others also get. And he cannot go to a secluded place there and sit. Otherwise, he's a project leader. So he sits with his colleagues, and while sitting and having his prasad, others having their meal, there is so much of useless talk happening about others, about this leader, that group leader, how all that useless talk happens, gossip. So he mentioned that what he did is, because of his own character, and he started getting getting a little more prasad and started distributing prasad to others while they were having. And because they had this prasad, somehow they became favorable. And then he started that gossip talk which was happening with his colleagues. The colleagues were actually gossiping into a favorable environment where he started narrating philosophy. And at some point, it turned that every afternoon after the lunch, they used to have 45 minutes class on the Bhagavatam. So this is how practically he transformed his afternoon into Bhagavatam class every day. So this is how devotees who are in the congregation should, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving a practical hint here. That unavoidable talk also becomes sinless and part of devotee service. He should not talk about others in a way that is detrimental to anyone. He should not talk about others. He should talk about others only whatever little is necessary in his Krishna conscious family. Whatever little is necessary. He should not talk about others without reason. So without any reason talking about others, we should not. More, when a guru enlightens his disciple on some topic, then unless he occasionally talks about others, his instruction may not be clear. So now gossip about others, sometimes a guru does, just to instruct his disciples. That he's going to now speak and give some examples. When previous Mahajans have talked about others in this way, there is merit in such talk, not fault. Now he gives example of Sukdev Goswami. He says in the second canto, Dehapatya kaladrishu atmasainyasha satsapi tesham pramatto nidanam pashyanapi na pashyati. Deeply attached to his body, children and wife, who are like an army giving protection. Atmasainyashu, though they are false, asatsopi, he sees their destruction, tesham nidanam pashyanapi, but does not see it, na pashyati. Although Sukdev Goswami talks about the materialist in order to instruct his disciple, he is not considered a Prajalpi. So this kind of talk is what I call uh, constructive criticism. Constructive criticism. It is gossip about others, but there's instruction for the disciple. Therefore, such activity should be considered beneficial. Again, in order to instruct his own disciples, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke about Surya renunciates in the following words from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhu kahe vairagi kare prakriti sambhashan, dekite na paro nami tahar vadan, shudra jiva sabha markat vairag kariya, indriya charan bhule prakriti sambhashiya, Prabhu kahe mora vash nahi mora man, prakriti sambhashi vairagi na kare darshan. So this is Chota Haridas, and Mahaprabhu banished him. Many devotees requested, but Mahaprabhu for 1 year, you know, he he did not, he did not subside, and then he gave instructions about, the duty of the renunciates if they lustfully engage in talking with women. And after this heavy instruction, uh, even everyone, Mahaprabhu's associates also very careful. And then he instructed for the generations to come. The Lord replied, I cannot tolerate seeing the face of a person who has accepted the renounced sort of life, but who still talks intimately with a woman. There are many persons with little in their possession, Vairagi, who accept the renounced sort of life like monkeys, Markata Vairagya. They go here and there, engaging in sense gratification and speaking intimately with women. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, my mind is not under my control. It does not like to see anyone in the renounced order who talks intimately with women. So this is to instruct, Mahaprabhu spoke about Chota Haridas. So this is not gossip. Unless one speaks in this way while instructing and while concluding a subject, there is no benefit for oneself and others. Therefore, when the previous acharyas have personally set example and taught others, how will we be benefited by acting contrary to their instruction? And if one discusses in this way the improper behavior current in a religious sect or amongst the general public, then such talk is not adverse to devotional service. So even Prabhupada, when the mission broke into factions and lead of the Gaudiya leaders were fighting among themselves, Bhaktivinoda Prabhupada spoke about it to his god brothers. And in fact, he wanted to write an article also. And that was valid. But still, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj or Bhakti Pragya Keshav Maharaj, said not to write. So the improper current behavior current in the religious sect or amongst the general public, when such talk is there, that talk is not adverse to devotion. So there is a very fine, thin line of discrimination, and it requires very fine intelligence and very advanced level of consciousness to actually discriminate. And that's why we have to read this Bhaktivinoda Thakur's article repeatedly and understand it. Even if someone talks about a particular person, there is no fault. Now, Maitreya Rishi is discussing the fault of Brahma. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Maitreya Muni, the foremost devotee, spoke about Vena Maharaj in this way. Maitreya said, thus the sinful king, Papinam, straying from the path, Utpatatam Gata, intelligence lost, Viprayamati, bereft of good fortune, Brashta Mangala, though pacified for the ages, Anuni Yamana, did not accept the request. Tad Yachnam na Chakre. So Maitreya Muni found the faults of Maharaj Vena in order to instruct about what is right and what is wrong. Shri Maitreya needed to speak about others in this way. He spoke to his audience, instruct them. This is not Prajalpa. The practicing devotee normally discusses ancient history in the association devotees. Occasionally, they talk about non-devotees. Such talk is always auspicious and favorable to devotional service. But those who talk about others while influenced by devotional impediments like envy, hatred, pride, distinction, are offenders at the feet of Bhakti Devi. So, Maitreya Rishi did not speak out of envy or pride, but just to instruct others. But when such talks are filled with envy, pride, then they are offenders at the feet of Bhakti Devi. Okay, so that ends regarding gossip. And there is another example of Maitreya Rishi. He spoke about the fault of Brahma. Anyone knows what I'm referring to? Anyone knows? Anyone is aware? Which, which, which is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam? Maitreya Rishi spoke about the fault of Brahma. Anyone knows? Raise your hands. No. It is Brahma who followed his own daughter Vak. And Maitreya Rishi is instructing this to Vidura. And he's gossiping about others, Brahmaji. But Maitreya Rishi does it with extreme caution. And this is not an incident during this Brahma's day. It is some other previous Brahma's day which has happened. And Maitreya Rishi is speaking about it. And this is not a fault because Maitreya Rishi wants to instruct jivas who have come in this universe. How lust is so powerful that even if Brahma can follow his own daughter Vak, how much one should be careful about lust. So to instruct the conditioned souls about the power of lust and how one should be careful, Maitreya Rishi instructs Vidura about this incident of Brahma following his own daughter Vak. And we should remember that the sons of Marichi who saw this, they laughed, but the Kumaras did not laugh. And because they laughed, they committed an offense, and that's why, they fell down. And they were born as the six sons of Devaki, and then they got reinstated in their positions. So, sometimes the Mahajans speak or gossip about the faults of others, in order to only instruct. That is the point Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making here. Okay, so time is up. We have discussed up till now 3 topics in Prajalpa. One is useless talk, arguments, and gossip. And you can see each of them are so elaborately being discussed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because all these can, in fact, destroy a division. Finding fault with others actually is that discussion which I just now did about Maitreya's finding fault with Brahma following his daughter Vak. So that is what. So the others also we will take it up tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll continue this discussion on Prajalpa. But for now, any questions, any clarifications anyone has? Or we could finish this discussion. I'm considering we have come here 30, 37. Can I take this and complete it, because another 7 slides are there. In another 10 minutes we can finish. But before that, we'll take Nandini Mataji's question. Yes, Mataji.
Very good, Prabhuji, and Vikram. Prabhuji, like it's observed that in a devotee family where everyone is practicing devotee, so most of the time, like the whatever arguments or anything which happens, which usually happens na, on the basis of ego, like
Yes.
so. Can you just tell us something on this?
That's what there is, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur is mentioning, that these talks are influenced by envy, pride, hatred, or distinction. And that's why they are offenders. And that's why within the family, husband, wife, or children talking, all that, that's why progress is very little we have seen. Why? Because there are offenses to Bhakti Devi. And that's why one has to be very, very careful about it. One has to set up some kind of, principles. If you don't have these principles set up, such rules set up, that among devotees, then it is very, very difficult. I know one family, the girl has a very serious mental disease. She's completely like physically handicapped, mentally handicapped also. I have heard information. She's on a wheelchair, she can't walk. But she's fully absorbed in whole day hearing Harikatha and absorbed in chanting. She's just practicing Ananya Bhakti. And the parents were telling me that sometimes, during the lunchtime, she's there sitting and they talk about others or they gossip, and immediately she says, you're engaged in useless talk. She can detect that. So that is why it is very, very important that we carefully understand this and how it is very, very detrimental to our spiritual progress. Okay. So I will complete this discussion, which is just few more slides. I'm maybe taking 10 minutes more, but it will we'll complete this. Now, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, he takes together. Debate arises only from the desire for conquest. It is extremely abominable. Debate means, even devotees sometimes, I am right, I am right, they go into this debate. And that desire for conquest, that how I am right, to prove. And it is said extremely abominable. Fault finding arises only from imposing one's own bad habit on others. This should be given up in all respects. Speaking falsehood is another form of useless talk. Worldly talk is completely rejected by renounced devotees. Householders may accept some worldly talk that is favorable to devotional service. So you have to see that, how much it is favorable. If topics like archaeology, zoology, astrology, and geography are devoid of God consciousness, they should be rejected. Like, archaeology is there. Karma Prabhu, he's trying to prove how, Darwin theory is wrong and trying to prove God consciousness. So if it is devoid of Krishna consciousness, then it should be rejected. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Sukadeva Goswami has said, Mrishagirasta hi asati rasat kata na katyate yad bhagavan adokshaj tadev satyam tadhueva mangalam tadev punyam bhagavat gunodayam tadev ramyam ruchiram navam navam tadev shashan manaso mahotsavam tadev shok karnaya shoshanam vrinam yad uttama shloka yasho nagiyate. Words that do not describe the transcendental personality of Godhead, yadna bhagwan adoksha katate, but instead deal with temporary matters, asat kata, are simply false and useless. Tam risha asati. Only those words that manifest the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord, yad uttama shloka yasho anugiyate, are actually truthful. Tad eva satyam, auspicious, tad eva mangalam, and pious, tad eva punyam. Those words describing the glory of the all-famous personality Godhead are attractive. Tadeva ramyam, relishable and ever fresh. Ruchiram navam navam. Indeed, such words are a perpetual festival for the mind. Tad eva sashwan manaso mahotsavam. And they dry up the ocean of misery. Tad eva shokarnava. Shoka arnava. So arnava is the ocean. Shoka means lamentation or misery. Shoshanam Pranam, they dry up. So this is a principle we can, establish in our practice. Whether, these words are Satya or Asatya. This is the first principle. And whether they are dealing with the all personality of Godhead, which is attractive, relishable, and ever fresh, and which is pleasing to the mind. You can see that when you talk about others or gossip, actually you are not relishing pleasure within. So that is why these are the principles we have to, and here's quoting here this famous verse. Speech in the form of blaspheming sadhus is a source of great inauspiciousness. Of course, sadhu ninda is a vast topic, but here Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one statement, he is stating this. If one wants to attain devotion to Lord Hari, then he should make a vow like this. In this life, I will never blaspheme sadhus. So Jayadvaita Maharaj mentions that don't criticize sadhus. He has written 2 articles also in it. Because if you criticize sadhus, then your bhakti, just like the waning of the moon, will wane and will be destroyed. So this is one thing which one should be very, very careful. Devotees are sadhus. By blaspheming them, all virtues are destroyed. By blaspheming the supremely pure Lord Mahadev, Prajapati, Daksha, the best of the ascetics, met with severe inauspicious. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Ayushriyam Yashodharmam Lokanashish evacha hanti shreyamsi sarvani pumsa mahad atikrama. My dear king, when a man prosecutes great souls, pumsan mahad atikrama, all his benedictions, shreyamsi sarvani, of longevity, beauty, fame, religion, ayu shriyam yasho dharmam, blessings and promotions to higher planets, lokan ashish eva, will be destroyed. Hanti. So this is one thing. If you avoid Vaishnav Ninda, success is guaranteed. This one thing, if you can avoid, success is 100% guaranteed. Now the last conclusion. The conclusion of this essay is this: whatever Prajalpa is not favorable for devotional service should be carefully given up by Vaishnavas who are cultivating bhakti. Amongst these instructions, the instruction to tolerate the urge to speak mentioned in the first verse, Vacho Vegam, is only a conditional urge. So again, he comes to the concept of conditional urge and the constitutional urge, which we discussed in Atyahara. Atyahar is a conditional urge. You know? Jiva Vegam is a conditional urge, but Atyahar is a constitutional urge. One has to always 24 hours, when you have eaten your food and then some samosa comes in, then that vega has to be tolerated. At certain conditions, these vegas come. But the atyahar is at root, at constitution, we have this, fault. So that's why all the times it has to be worked on. Similarly, Vacho Vegam, the urge to speak is a conditional urge. When there are conditions like two people meet, the propensity to speak, is there. But Prajalpa, by giving up Prajalpa, the urge to speak is permanently regulated. So if you work on the constitutional, fault, that is Prajalpa, then automatically Vacho Vegam happens. Just like, there is a burn, there is a boil on your hand, and you apply the cream, external cream, it goes away, but again it comes back. But in Ayurveda, you holistically heal by taking a medication in your stomach. So the boil will not come at all. So similarly, if you work on Prajalpa, automatically Vacho Vegam will be taken care. So Vacho Vegam is a conditional rule, tolerate, controlled speak to urge to speak. Prajalpa is a constitutional rule, giving up Prajalpa, urge to speak is completely regulated. In order to pass one's life without sin, one should not speak anything more than whatever little is necessary. One need discuss only whatever is auspicious for oneself and others. If one wants to discuss topics of others, it will simply be useless speech. Therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna instructed Uddhava as follows: Parasvabhava karmani yaha prashamsati nindati sa ashu brishyate swartat asat abhiniveshata. Whoever indulges in praising or criticizing yaha prashamsati nindati, the qualities and behaviors of others, parasvabhava karmani, will quickly become deviated from his own best interests. Sa ashu brashate swa arthat, by his entanglement in illusory dualities. Asat abhiniveshata. So this is a very important instruction. Para swabhava, discussing about others' swabhava, others' activities, either glorifying or criticizing. You will be deviated from your own best interest because you're entangled in raga and dvesh. They are all good, bad is all dualities. And that's why one has to be very careful. So that's how Bhaktivinoda Thakur ends his discussion about Prajalpa. Now, this topic of Prajalpa is very, very deep, and I would request devotees to repeatedly go through this article and reflect and meditate upon it. In fact, for me also, it was after 2-3 years, I've taken this discussion once again and It has made me more alert that how I should, talk only what is necessary and avoid this Prajalpa of gossiping or whatever it is. Okay, so I'll stop here. Any questions, any clarifications you have? Yes, Nandini Mataji.
Very well, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, just the last statement that we should, like, for Prajalpa, even glorification comes under that.
Mm,
And with
Yeah, this is what many devotees have doubt. Good, you brought out. Now, generally, you know, paraswabhava. Swabhava refers to the nature of a person. Some person's nature is good, some devotees' nature is not so good. And we are discussing about the nature of that devotee, that conditioned nature. And the nature of the soul is different. That is, he does devotional service. And this is again, NOI, Drishte Swabhava Janita Vapushya Dosher. You see dosh in their Swabhava. Na prakritam iha bhakta janasya pashi. So that's what it is. So generally, I give this example. Sometimes, you are a South Indian, you like dosa. And when dosa is prepared, you glorify, oh, what a nice dosa he has made. This cook is very nice, because he has prepared this dosa. But you are glorifying the cook because your nature or your conditioned nature is that you are a South Indian and you like dosa. But next day, when he makes Karela, you will criticize him. Why did you make this? I don't like this. So here the raga and dvesh is your own conditioned nature. And what suits your condition, you praise. What doesn't suit, you criticize. So he's still caught up in the sabhava. But genuine appreciation of a devotee for, offering it to the Lord, cooking and offering it to the Lord, not because you like it or and that's your nature, then that is, that is not uh, that is not coming under the influence of raga and dvesh. But here it is spoken about swabhav. That is the difference. I hope it is clear.
yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Okay, so thank you very, very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Sri Bhaktyaloka ki jai. Hare Krishna.